So you've heard of the Milgram experiments?
No.
These are kind of like the Stanford Prism, pretty famous. And what he did was he set up these experiments where you couldn't see these actors were behind a wall, but they were getting asked questions, and if they answered the question wrong, they would get a little electric shock.
Yeah.
That was done by the person that was being experimented on.
Uh-huh.
So, they'd say, okay, Jocko, you got this guy, his name is Echo, he's over there, going to ask him a question. If he gets it wrong, you hit him with this shock. I can't see you, but I can hear you. So when I shock you, and every question that you get wrong, I have to escalate the level of shock. So it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Yeah. And your reaction is more and more horrific as these things escalate.
Right. But you're the guy, the experiment is on, not me.
The experiment is on me. No, you're just an actor. There's no actual shock happening.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, and you're actually going through series of complaints, and I'll read this here. There was an escalating series of fake electric shocks upon a actor or victim who responded with carefully programmed voice feedback. An escalating series of complaints, cries of pain, call for help, and finally fateful silence. In the standard voice feedback experiment, 2/3 of Milgram's subjects were obedient to the point of inflicting extreme pain. Several variations on the experiment produced significantly different results. If the actor/victim was shielded so that the subject could hear and see no response, obedience was much greater. So if I couldn't hear you and I just knew that I was shocking the hell out of you, I was good with it. If the subject had both visual and voice feedback, compliance to the extreme fell to 40%. So down from 66% to 40%. If the subject had to touch the actor/victim physically by forcing his hand onto an electric plate to deliver the shocks, obedience dropped to 30%. Now this is fascinating. If a non-authority figure gave orders, obedience was nil. So if some guy was like, hey, hey, I'm Bill, I'm running the experiment. Hey, shock this guy. If the guy was no authority, they got none.
No obedience.
So that shows you, and that's from a leadership perspective, that's very important to understand. It's important to understand how much influence you have when you're in a leadership position. And I run into this all the time, and I ran into it in the SEAL teams, when a guy doesn't recognize the power of his rank. And he doesn't recognize that just by wearing his rank, when he says something, people are kind of like gonna do it. They want to do it.
Right.
So then going back to the book here, if the naive subject performed a subsidiary or accessory task but did not personally inflict the electric shocks, obedience was nearly total. So that goes down to the division of labor again. If it was just me saying, okay, I asked him a question, you have to shock him again, and some other guy was shocking you, I'd go straight to 100. Straight to 100.
Dang, bro.
In contrast, if the subject was part of an actor peer group that staged carefully planned refusal to continue to follow the directions of the authority figure, the vast majority of subjects, 90%, joined their peer group and desisted as well. So that's the tipping point thing.
Yeah.
If there was if it was 3 of us that were conducting the experiment on you, and and I was the naive guy that doesn't know what's going on. I'm the one that they were actually doing the experiment on. Mm-hmm. And there's 2 actors that are in the room with me, and they're going to be like, hey, man, we shouldn't be doing this. And the other guy goes, yeah, man, that looks like it's really hurting me. We should stop this. Yeah. 90% of the time, I go, yeah, you guys are right.
Yeah.
Psychology, group psychology. If the subject was given complete discretion as to the level of electric shock to administer, all but a few sadists consistently delivered a minimal shock. When not under direct surveillance of the scientist, many of the subjects cheated by giving lower shocks than prescribed, even though they were unable to confront authority and abandon the experiment. So they'd give lower shocks, but they wouldn't walk away from it. Right. They wouldn't just say, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah. It's weird. So everyone's really, you know what it is? We're all just on the edge, man.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah.
Like, and we kind of need each other in that way too.
Well, it's again, this is about leadership. It's amazing how influential or how influenceable people are. They're
Yeah.
so ready for influence. They're so ready to be told, like, hey, man, we shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
It's the same thing we saw with the podcast on the My Lai massacre. All it took was one
Yeah.
officer saying, stop killing. And everyone, okay, stop killing.
Right.
Everyone
That's
just,
what I mean.
they just need to get nudged in that direction. And by the way, they had already been nudged in the other direction, which is kill everyone. And they said, okay,
Right.
cool, we'll kill everyone.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by I don't mean on the edge of like saying nothing. I mean on the fence.
Yeah,
You know,
on the fence. That's why leadership is so important, because
Yeah.
you're walking around with people all over the world, and whatever position you're in, regardless if it's in a work environment, if it's a social environment, if it's with your friend or your peer group, you have so much power over people just by being a leader and by using that influence to work people one way or the other.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it is crazy. Going back to the book, to what were the vast majority of Trapp's men responding to when they did not step out? Was it the authority as represented by either Trapp or his superiors? Were they responding to Trapp not primarily as an authority figure, but as an individual, a popular and beloved officer who they would not leave in the lurch? What about other factors? Milgram himself notes that people far more frequently invoke authority than conformity to explain their behavior. For only the former seems to absolve them of personal responsibility. And he quotes here, subjects deny conformity and embrace obedience as the explanation of their actions. So people don't like to say, everyone else is doing it, so I did it. People don't like to say that because that means I'm responsible for it. People don't like to take ownership of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have a book called Extreme Ownership. People don't like to take ownership of things. Right.
Yeah.
Instead, they want to say, as soon as I blame something on my boss, and this is one of the big things in extreme ownership leading up the chain of command, it's so easy to blame your boss because how can I control my boss?
I was following orders.
I was following orders. Boss told me to do this. That's why we failed a mission. I was told to do this. He didn't give me the right gear. That's what we hear this all the time.
Yeah.
And Milgram says it too. No one wants to say, hey, you know what? I decided I was just going to do what everyone else was doing.
Yeah.
That's my decision. Instead, they put that decision on the other guy, on the boss man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another exploration here, back to the book. Direct proximity to the horror of killing significantly increased the number of men who would no longer comply. On the other hand, with the division of labor and removal of the killing process to the death camps, the men felt scarcely any responsibility at all for their actions. Same thing Milgram figured out. If I got someone else that's pressing the button over there that's shocking you, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Keep rolling.